Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
In Ramallah, Foreign Minister Hani al-Mulki conveyed the congratulations of His Majesty the King to Mahmoud Abbas for being elected as President of the Palestinian National Authority. Mulki also conveyed the congratulations of Prime Minister Faisal al-Fayez and the Jordanian government to Abbas. During a meeting with Abbas, Mulki stressed on Jordan's keenness to support the Palestinian people's struggle to regain their rights and establish a viable state on their national soil. Mulki told reporters after the meeting that Jordan expects a resumption of peace talks on the basis of international legitimacy, the Roadmap Peace Plan, and the Arab Peace Initiative. In the wake of the election of Abbas, who replaces the late Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat, world leaders urged both the Palestinians and Israel to take concrete steps to reduce tensions and improve the climate for creating a Palestinian state. Iman Al-Akour has the details.
Mahmoud Abbas was formally declared the winner of the Palestinian presidential election. The Central Electoral Commission announced that Abbas, who succeeded Yasser Arafat as leader of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, captured 62.3% of the vote in yesterday's poll. The closest of 6 other candidates was pro-democracy activist Mustafa Barghouthi with about 20% of the vote. He said he is proud with this Palestinian achievement and also with the results, which show that the Palestinian people are determined to go on the path of democracy despite the Israeli occupation, which is something unique in the Arab world and proves that Palestinians deserve an independent state. Turnout in the first Palestinian presidential election since 1996 looked healthy despite a boycott called by Islamic militants, strengthening Abbas's mandate.
It's a very good result. Our people practice his right to choose their leader, and I am happy about the results. I'm sure that now there is a possibility, if there is a good intention from the Israeli side, to start a very serious and credible war to start immediate discussion, negotiation, and to put an end to the conflict once and forever.
Even if nobody else stood a chance of winning yesterday's vote, commentators hailed it as one of the fairest in the Arab world and pointed out that runner-up Barghouthi could at least criticize Abbas openly. U.S. President George W. Bush praised the election as an essential step to statehood and offered Abbas his help in a new push for peace, while calling on Israel to improve the humanitarian situation for Palestinians.
I want to offer my congratulations to Mr. Abu Mazen. I look forward to talking with him at the appropriate time. I look forward to welcoming him here to Washington if he chooses to come here. I look forward to helping to make sure that the conference in London, a conference all aimed at helping the Palestinians develop the institutions necessary to support Abu Mazen's vision of a peaceful, active, vibrant state to become reality.
U.S. and EU officials led international monitoring teams have held meetings with Abbas and other Palestinian officials. They said Abbas won a remarkably wonderful victory.
I have come to pay my respects and to offer my congratulations to Abu Mazen, who has won, in my opinion, a remarkably wonderful victory. He'll be inaugurated as a new president on Wednesday, and I think the whole world will be excited about this event.
I think that the way this process of transition has been done is very, very solid and very, very impressive. The maturity of the people in Palestinian, the maturity of these leaders, I would like to recognize them publicly. I think we have, or you have, the Palestinian people have a very important leader in the new president, and I hope all the best. You can be sure that the European Union is going to help you.
Palestinian Islamic Hamas said it could work with Abbas, but reiterated its commitment to the choice of resistance. It called on the president-elect to be aware of falling in the Israeli trap. Abbas's sweeping victory stirred hopes for a revival of peace talks, but Israel demanded a Palestinian crackdown on militants first. Israel has said it sees Abbas as a man to do business with and has praised his calls for an end to violence. A meeting between Abbas and the Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon is expected to take place soon.
I cannot, of course, give you a date at this point, but I think we will not have to wait very long for an official meeting between the new elected Palestinian leader and the Israeli Prime Minister. It is not a real secret that there have been unofficial contacts between the two for some time now. So when they meet, it will not be a first meeting, it will be a continuation of past contacts.
Peace and stability remains every Palestinian's dream in the new era.
Well, what we expect is to get the peace in the area, etc., and the most important, the recovery for the economy. And this is very important. Everybody is looking for a good economy, and of course the jobs, creating jobs for everybody, and we hope that he will succeed in his role as a leader.
Meanwhile, any optimism for a new era of diplomacy will still be vulnerable to militants defying Abbas's calls to end armed struggle. And neither Palestinians nor Israelis have shown signs of compromise on fundamental issues behind decades of conflict. Iman Lakour, Jordan Television.
Israel has begun to describe Abu Mazen's election as the President of the Palestinian Authority as the beginning of a new era. Israel's Prime Minister Ariel Sharon stressed on the need for Abu Mazen to begin trying to fight what he called terrorism, to stop incitement and implement the Palestinian commitments in the roadmap. These demands came as Prime Minister Ariel Sharon begins to make preparations to meet Abu Mazen. From Jerusalem, this report by Shireen Yunus.
Israel did not hide its satisfaction over the results of the Palestinian elections, which placed Mahmoud Abbas Abu Mazen as the new president of the Palestinian National Authority. Sharon's office, which is making the latest preparations to unify the Labour Party and the Yahdut Hatorah into the Likud government, confirmed the Israeli Prime Minister's intentions to invite Abu Mazen to begin discussions on security issues. The Foreign Ministry considered the Palestinian elections an experiment as the only democratic one in the Arab world. Officials confirmed that the intentions of the new Palestinian leadership will be judged by its actions.
The time has come for the President and the new Palestinian Ministers' Council to progress towards peace with Israel. Will they lose Israel as a partner in security and peace?
Disarming the Palestinian factions and stopping martyrdom operations which target Israel is not just the demand made by the Likud party, but also the Labour Party, which decided to join Sharon's government on the condition that it carries out the disengagement plan. The Labour Party was pleased by the election of Abu Mazen, confirming the need to return to the negotiations after implementing the withdrawal plan from Gaza.
We must give Palestinians more freedom to travel in the West Bank and release their prisoners. I know this issue concerns the Palestinians very much. We must stop building on Palestinian lands and return to the negotiation table.
The new Palestinian president faces many big issues. The satisfaction expressed by Tel Aviv in the election of Abu Mazen does not guarantee that it will make any fundamental changes in its policies towards the Palestinians, especially since Israel will first focus any future discussions with the Palestinians on the issue of security.
Palestinians are hoping that Abu Mazen's victory will notably improve their living conditions, which have been deteriorating under the Israeli occupation. They are hoping that Abu Mazen will reform Palestinian agencies and institutions. Now to our reporter in Gaza, Hazem Badaru.
Mahmoud Abbas Abu Mazen won the Palestinian presidential election as expected. Now he has to work on solving many issues, most importantly, improving the daily lives of Palestinians. since they have been suffering from the Israeli occupation. The Palestinian public's main demands include improving the economy and security.
We hope that the newly elected president will improve the situation in Gaza and the economy would be better. We also hope that the ceasefire would be implemented.
We are optimistic that the situation would improve and things would change, such as the cross points and the situation on the streets. Of course, we have great hope in the youth, and we hope life would improve for them too.
Abu Mazen received 62% of the votes. The Palestinian public interprets this victory, saying that the majority of voters agree with his plan, particularly his plans to stop the militarization of the uprising. Nevertheless, public opinion reveals that this percentage does not give him the right to disregard the fundamental national principles.
The votes that Abu Mazen received in this election are proof that the Palestinians agree with his working plan. He is proposing to stop the militarization of the uprising. The majority of the voters support this idea.
On the political front, Abu Mazen will be facing a challenging battle with the Israelis. The Palestinians are hoping that he will break new ground during negotiations with Israel. However, the Palestinian public questions the trustworthiness of the Israeli government.
The Palestinian people have wanted peace for the past 48 years. But do the Israelis want peace too? We have been offering peace since Oslo, but did Israel implement any peace agreement? None were implemented.
Abu Mazen won the presidential election, but it's only the first battle. He has other battles awaiting him internally, such as improving the economy and security, negotiating with the Palestinian factions, and reaching a joint plan that would support his negotiations with Israel. Azam Badaro, Abu Dhabi TV, Gaza.
Barred from participating in Sunday's election to replace Yasser Arafat, Palestinian refugees in Lebanon fear being left in the political wilderness when the new leadership comes to power. Despite a UN resolution passed in 1948, Israel opposes the return of refugees. Across Lebanon, Palestinian refugees in some camps cast their ballots in symbolic votes Sunday, but some camps were quiet. Muhalil Faki has a story.
Riyadh is critical of the Palestinian presidential election. He lives in one of 12 refugee camps scattered across Lebanon.
Am I not a Palestinian? Where is my role in the elections?
That is how many refugees feel. In his shop at the Burj Barajne refugee camp on the fringes of Beirut, Riyadh and his clients tuned into an Egyptian soap opera and not to the numerous Arabic satellite channels that were covering elections in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Like other Palestinian refugees, those living in Lebanon could not vote for a successor to President Yasser Arafat.
They don't care for the people who are in the camps of the diaspora.
On a wall, Riyadh displays a photograph of a home he said belonged to his family in what is now northern Israel. Whether he and some 350,000 other refugees in Lebanon can ever go there is one of the thorniest issues in the deadlocked Middle East peace process.
I always wish that we had our own independent country and that we could vote. Regrettably, even international law does not respect our right of return.
The presence of Palestinian refugees dating back to Israel's 1948 creation has been blamed for a Lebanese civil war that only ended in 1990. And the Palestinian armed struggle against Israel, led by Arafat from Lebanese land, drew several Israeli invasions at the same time. So enshrined in Lebanon's constitution is a clause banning any resettlement or naturalization. The Palestinians live in squalid conditions. They are controlled by rival Palestinian factions outside Lebanese state control. And since the 1993 Israeli-Palestinian Oslo Interim Peace Accords were signed, refugees feel abandoned. Their fate was not discussed, and Israel vowed never to let them back. Although refugees have no say in this election, their support for any Palestinian president is crucial. If and when Palestinian-Israeli peace negotiations do pick up again, it is the new leadership that will have to tackle the fate of refugees here and in other Arab countries. All the candidates had promised the refugees they will support their interests, but that has always been the official Palestinian line, and for the past 5 decades.
What will ever make me want to stay here? It is not our country and we aren't wanted.
There was apathy on this election day among the refugees of Burj al-Barajni camp, which, unlike other Palestinian shanty towns in Lebanon, is not under the control of a single Palestinian faction, allowing for more open discussions. Some supported Abu Mazen or Mahmoud Abbas's election to succeed Abu Ammar, as Arafat was widely known. Others did not, and several said it just did not matter.
Of course, Abu Mazen. He was in the struggle with us. He was with the president. For sure our cause is not dead. It won't die. It's over because the old man died. What will it change now?
I really don't know the candidates or their plans.
This 21-year-old baker knows the candidates, but he said he just did not care anymore.
I don't see anything happening. We will remain here.
One of his clients was more hopeful. She also feels the new leadership in Ramallah could help them.
We want them to return us to our country.
It's a challenge that President Mahmoud Abbas will have to take up. He will also have to convince millions of Palestinian refugees that they have not been left behind. Muhal Hilfiki, Future Television, the Burj al-Barajni camp, Lebanon.
The Independent High Elections Commission in Iraq announced that the election is on its way. The election will take place at 5,000 voting centers, except in the Anbar province. This came at the same time that a group of workers for the Independent Elections Commission in the Samarra province submitted their resignations, calling for implementing the demands made by the Sunni Religious Scholars Association in Iraq.
مع اقتراب موعد الانتخابات في العراق تنتقل الهجمات المسلحة.
As the date for the election nears, armed attacks are moving from one city to another. In the southern city of Basra, the calm environment has broken after an assassination attempt on a member of the local city council. He was lightly injured, but 2 of his personal bodyguards were killed in the incident.
وإصابته بجروح طفيفة.
Another attack took place in Basra in the evening, when a device exploded near a police car, wounding 1 person. It appears that most armed groups are targeting security forces and Iraqi officials. In Baghdad, a booby-trapped car exploded near a police station in the area of Mahawil, south of the Iraqi capital, killing and wounding more than 20 people, most of whom were civilians. The armed groups are not excluding the many election centers from their explosive attacks. In Mosul, northern Iraq, a building exploded, which was going to be used as a voting center. This explosion comes as officials from election agencies continue to submit their resignations, the latest of which took place in the city of Samarra, where they strengthened the Sunni party's position, demanding the postponement of the elections.
Those who do not want the elections held today do not mean they want to boycott the elections. They want what is in the best interest of the country. The demand to postpone the elections is an Iraqi request, not a foreign request.
دعوات أطراف عراقية لرحيل القوات الأجنبية.
Iraqi factions are demanding that the foreign forces withdraw to offer a chance to conduct free elections. This comes as the U.S. Army is being accused of carrying out raids in one of the villages near Mosul, killing 14 Iraqis. The U.S. forces are making efforts to reinforce their presence in the unsecured areas, which includes Mosul. Meanwhile, an American general admitted that the armed fighters have strengthened the force of the explosives they are using in order to produce greater results.
لكي تكون أكثر فاعلية.
The Gulf countries were criticized both domestically and internationally due to the small amount of money they have contributed to the tsunami victims, which represents no more than 2% of the total international funds. In the beginning, the total sum of the Gulf country donations only reached $100 million, which is a modest amount of money, especially when considering their large oil revenue, or when compared to the amount of aid provided by Western countries to the tsunami victims in South and Southeastern Asia. Meanwhile, ordinary citizens in the Gulf are calling on their governments to donate 1 day of oil revenue to help the afflicted.
بكثير من الاستغراب والإحباط في بعض الأحيان
Those who are following the events of the tsunami tragedy were wondering, and in some cases very critical, of the small financial aid that Arab countries have pledged to the afflicted countries. Although the Gulf countries have vowed to increase the amount of aid and open the door for its citizens to give private donations, it still did not help some people from feeling disappointed and frustrated when they learn about the small amount of money donated by the Gulf countries to the victims of the tragedy. This made Gulf countries the subject of criticism both domestically and internationally. Many believe that the share of donations from the Gulf countries are very small, especially when considering the magnitude of the tragedy. Other people, including some of the Arab citizens in the Gulf, believe that the small amount of donations reflects the indifference of the governments of the Gulf countries. This feeling was deepened because of the large difference between the Gulf countries' donations and other countries. The total sum of funds pledged by all countries reached $4 billion. Australia alone donated much more money than all the Gulf countries combined. In the beginning, the total sum of funds pledged by the Gulf countries did not exceed $70 million. The hands of many of the Gulf countries were tied, despite the fact that their daily oil revenues reached $500 million. When Gulf countries realized the seriousness of the criticism, they quickly announced their intention to increase the amount of aid, or organize pledge drives, like what happened in Saudi Arabia, where more than $30 million were collected in the first few hours of the drive. Political observers were puzzled the most by the lack of coverage that the Arab media had in some Arab countries in the Gulf of the tsunami tragedy, despite the large number of Asian workers that live in these countries. It looked like they were more concerned with diseases that the Asians may bring with them than the fate of millions of homeless victims. However, some defended the position of the Gulf countries, saying that even countries such as the United States started with a small amount of aid when the tragedy occurred and increased the aid when the magnitude of the tragedy became clearer. Other countries say that the Gulf countries are sending aid in many forms, and that the aid is given only for humanitarian reasons, not based on the religious or ethnic makeup of the victims.
إلى القاهرة وزير الخارجية أحمد أبو الغيط.
The Egyptian Foreign Minister Ahmed Abu Ghait returned to Cairo after representing Egypt in the official ceremony of signing the peace treaty between the Sudanese government and the Southern Sudan Popular Army in the Kenyan capital of Nairobi on Sunday. Abu Ghait said that his participation in the final peace agreement reflects the Egyptian role in ensuring the success of this agreement in order to achieve the dreams of the Sudanese nation in the south and the north. President Hosni Mubarak had sent a high-level delegation led by Abu Ghait to attend the ceremony in Nairobi.
بانتهاء ما تصفه وكالات الإغاثة والمنظمات.
Ending what international aid organizations called the longest civil war in the Black Continent, the Sudanese Vice President Ali Osman Taha and John Garang, the leader of the Southern Sudan Liberation Army, the main rebel movement, signed the final peace agreement. The Egyptian Foreign Minister Ahmed Abu Mazen attended the ceremony representing Egypt. The UN Special Envoy to Sudan, Ian Bronick, represented the international agency. The Secretary General of the Arab League also attended. Other organizations such as the African Union and a number of European countries were also represented. U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell also attended the ceremony. At the end of the ceremony, John Garang, the leader of the Southern Sudan Liberation Army, and Ali Osman Taha, the Sudanese vice president, signed the final peace agreement. Then Garang stood in line on the podium next to the Kenyan President Mwai Kibaki, the Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir, and his vice president Ali Osman Taha, while the Sudanese national anthem was played. The Sudanese civil war was started in southern Sudan in 1983, when the Southern Sudan Liberation Army rebelled in the southern region, where animists and Christians dominantly live. The war killed 1.5 million people and forced about another 4 million to flee their homes to neighboring countries. The latest peace agreement only resolves the civil war in the south, and thus it does not necessarily mean that peace will prevail in all of Sudan. In February 2003, another civil war broke out in the Darfur region in western Sudan, killing more than 70,000 people and forcing 1.6 million others to flee, mainly to neighboring Chad. The UN Security Council held several sessions to discuss the humanitarian crisis in Darfur, and the United States threatened the Sudanese government with economic sanctions if it did not try to reach a peaceful solution to the Darfur crisis.
Celebrating the peace agreement in Sudan, the Egyptian Sudanese community organized an event in coordination with the Muslim Young Men Association. During the event, which was attended by many Sudanese living in Cairo, speakers confirmed that the peace agreement is a historical achievement that must be celebrated, and emphasized the need to stay committed to peace and unity by thinking beyond the narrow personal interests at the expense of the Sudanese national interests.
وإعلاء قيمة المصلحة السودانية العليا.
Not only Sudanese officials were interested in the peace agreement that was signed by the Sudanese government and the Southern Sudan Liberation Army in Nairobi, ending a half-century of conflicts and civil war, but also a lot of civilians were interested as well. The Egyptian Sudanese Association organized the event to celebrate the occasion in coordination with the International Young Muslim Men Association, confirming that this peace agreement is a historical achievement. It proves that the Sudanese nation can overcome civil conflicts and reach lasting peace in order to maintain the unity of the country. Dr. Samir Alish, the director of the Egyptian Sudanese Association, said,
We think that this is a step toward unity that would be achieved on a voluntary basis. The entire world is heading toward unity and development. We should never allow ourselves to divide. We saw how Europe united after 40 million people were killed in the two world wars. They are united to achieve development, and a similar thing is happening in Asia. This thinking is prevailing in the world. So why shouldn't we unite, especially when considering that our region was once united? We hope that the language of reason and conscience will prevail.
The Sudanese community in Cairo were overwhelmed with joy, which explained why they made sure they attended this celebration, which was also attended by many scholars and journalists. However, some emphasized the need to stay committed to the peace agreement so it does not fail. Participants confirmed that a lot of serious work must be done in the next 6 years in order to strengthen the unity of the Sudanese nation voluntarily.
The views expressed on Mosaic are not those of Link TV or its sponsors, but of the broadcasters themselves. Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, which promotes journalism excellence worldwide and invests in the vitality of 26 U.S. communities, and the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Firedoll Foundation and Henry and Virgilia Dakin.